From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on Ag Day, it's become the hottest drink at one high school. See what has these high schoolers consuming more milk. A big jump when it comes to farmer sentiment.
That's the highest reading we've had on the Index of Future Expectations since we've been collecting data.
And new information on what a deadly virus in China could mean when it comes to the Phase 1 trade deal. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. With the coronavirus continuing to impact China, a White House official now says China is likely to delay its buys of U.S. products that it promised to do under the newly signed Phase 1 trade deal. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow telling Fox Business Network, quote, the export boom from that trade deal will take longer because of the Chinese virus, end quote. Kudlow going on to say he thought the impact of the virus to the U.S. economy would be minimal, adding, quote, this is not going to be that big of a deal for us, end quote. The Global Times reporting one researcher says while the purchase of U.S. goods would be delayed in the first quarter, the country could increase purchases later this year since the obligation is measured annually. And if China was to buy U.S. ag right now, there may be a shortage of workers in China to handle it. There are reports of fewer workers at ports, including inspectors and others, due to the travel restrictions in place in China. The situation is also resulting in other delays on down the chain, including the shortage of truck drivers to move cargo away from ports. Reuters reporting China on Tuesday ordered local government leaders to make sure disruptions in the hauling of animal feed and livestock would be kept at a minimum during the outbreak. The Ministry of Agriculture saying on its website the closure of slaughterhouses was forbidden. All this as the human toll from the virus continues to rise. Now, the virus has killed more people in mainland China than the SARS virus did back in 2003. China now reporting more than 400 deaths from the virus with over 20,000 confirmed cases. Around the world, more than 20 countries have reported positive cases of the virus. At last report, there were 11 confirmed cases here in the U.S. The expectation that trade with China will improve sent the January Ag Barometer soaring. The barometer from Purdue University and the CME Group rising to a reading of 167. That's a 17-point jump from December. It marks the highest barometer reading since researchers started gathering data back in 2015. Surveyors reporting the rise was a direct result of the sharp increase in optimism about future conditions in agriculture.
That Index of Future Expectations rose from a reading of 155 in December to 179 in January. And again, that's the highest reading we've had on the Index of Future Expectations since we've been collecting data.
Now, despite that big improvement in future expectations, the Farm Capital Investment Index in January actually fell 4 points. The index is based upon a question that asks farmers whether now is a good or bad time to make large investments in things like farm machinery and buildings. The Iowa caucuses were the first step in the 2020 presidential primary season, but there was a delay in the results. The Iowa Democratic Party saying it was due to a coding issue that has since been fixed. In a statement, the Iowa Democratic Party chair said, quote, we have every indication that our systems were secure and there was not a cybersecurity intrusion, end quote. Leaders say independent cybersecurity consultants tested the systems before the caucuses. Regardless of the outcome, candidates left Iowa for New Hampshire without the outcome of the contest being announced. Republicans also caucusing in Iowa on Monday, with President Trump taking the state easily. No matter the caucuses in Iowa, one producer sees the recent interest in the state as a way of getting information out regarding new systems of farming. Reporter Lauren Granata of WEBN takes us to a farm in Lacona, Iowa.
This isn't about big farmers versus small farmers. This isn't about Democratic farmers versus Republican farmers.
Matt Russell and his husband are co-owners of Coyote Run Farm in Lacona, Iowa, where their mission is to deliver top quality beef and produce, utilizing nature to do so.
Essentially using all that fossil fuels to do all that work. We're just having the cows do the work themselves.
Matt's referring to a system called rotational grazing.
We're using our pastures, the sun, the cows, their natural instincts to move them through our farm in a way that the manure ends up being where it needs to be, that they harvest the grasses themselves and then move to another location, and then that land recovers. Our carbon negative cows, those steaks, should not only be doing better for the environment, they can taste better too.
But the concept of working with nature on the farm is one Matt envisions for not only his own.
all the science is saying the fossil fuel era is kind of coming to an end. It's not if it's coming to an end, it's when and how fast.
Matt is at the front line of farmers who are advocating to be leaders of change.
We had the caucus cycle coming up. We knew that the whole world would be here, the candidates, there'd be an opportunity to have this discussion.
Matt has personally sat down with Democratic candidates to discuss the future of agriculture, and he has his own way of teaming up with other farmers.
When I see what the world needs, I just feel this deep sense that God is working every day in my life, in my family, on my farm, calling me to be part of the solutions that are needed.
But in order to carry out those solutions, Matt says it will take more than just support from other farmers.
These are the things that we know we can do, but the economics right now don't incentivize that. It's actually just the opposite.
Matt hopes climate change is on the agenda for both political parties. Reporting in Lacona, Iowa for AgDay News, I'm Lauren Granada.
Winter's returning with a vengeance in parts of the country right now. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen's continuing to track a winter storm that could be bringing with it freezing rain.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a messy storm across the nation's midsection. Some of it snow, some of it rain, but yes, some of it is going to be ice. This is a look at the ice accumulation expected. Now, through this morning, not a whole lot. We're starting to see some, especially over into Texas, but our model is showing that ice moving all the way up through parts of the Missouri Valley in towards the Great Lakes area. So you can see that stretch where we have the snow on the north side of that, rain on the south side of that, but that stretch where we're going to be seeing some very messy and icy weather, especially from Oklahoma through southern Missouri, parts of Illinois, Indiana, and it gets even worse, it looks like, in Ohio and into Pennsylvania. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that system, but let's also keep an eye on some fun pictures to enlighten our day. And you have to see this photo that was shared with us. Oh, poor little guy. Kevin Papp sharing this picture of his grandson, Lennox. Now, Kevin says Lennox was visiting the neighbor's lambing barn in Blue Earth County, Minnesota. And as you can see, Kevin adding the caption, "When your mom doesn't let you take a lamb home." I'm sure I would have reacted the same way when I was his age. Stay tuned. I'll have your national forecast coming up. Clinton?
There are several new reports on the food we eat. We begin with eggs. A study says eating 1 egg a day is not bad for you. This research conducted by the Population Health Research Institute in Canada. Now, the study analyzing more than 177,000 people. The findings: moderate egg intake, which is about 1 egg a day, does not increase the risk of cardiovascular disease or death. And that's even if people have a history of heart problems or diabetes. WebMD saying the study was funded by government health agencies in Ontario, not the egg industry. And the USDA Economic Research Service says 2019 saw an almost 6% increase in organic food sales. Researchers saying, quote, consumers prefer organically produced food because of their concerns regarding health, the environment, and animal welfare, and they show a willingness to pay the price premiums established in the marketplace, end quote. Now, many shoppers report buying organics, but the majority do not buy organic produce all the time. You see the most likely products people were buying organic on your screen there, with kale leading the way. Only 27% of people surveyed in Organic Fresh Trends 2020 said they always bought certain items as organic. Planting season is just about ready to start down south, and this year the crop mix may be a little bit different. We'll find out why coming up in analysis. And later, USDA says fluid milk consumption has fallen by 40% since 1975. We'll travel to North Dakota, where one high school is finding a way to get it back on the menu. It was a market rebound for grains Tuesday, while the Dow jumped more than 400 points. Let's see how things closed with Ted Seifert at the CME in Chicago.
And for the most part, we've tried to be strong all day on this Tuesday. Now, you do have stock market trying to rally. Coronavirus is still a concern for the market, but at least over the weekend and in the last couple days, it hasn't really snowball escalated like some of us had been concerned that it would. So that is allowing a little bit of relief. The stock market, again, finding some strength, and the grain markets, for the most part, finding some strength. However, we are off of our highs as we get into the close here, and just another sort of disappointing day where we just can't hold on to the strength, especially if we can get some purchases from China.
We're here at Top Producer Summit. I've found Ashley Arrington with Ag Authority joining us today. And Ashley, let's talk about the southern mix of crops this year because, you know, we've gone back to more cotton. You know, always peanuts are good. What about soybeans and corn? How's that shaping up?
Well, right now, with how cotton's looking, it just doesn't pencil as well on paper as some of the other crops do. There's been no explosion in other commodity prices that's pushing us in that direction, but just the downtick in cotton is making the steady price of peanuts. We were looking at about $400 a ton last year for 2019. It's about what we're looking at for 2020, holding steady. We're always basis positive in my part of the country for corn. We're all irrigated, so it usually turns out well. So cotton's kind of the outlier that gets kind of pushed to the side. Will people completely quit planting it? No, they're not going to let their equipment sit idle, but we may see a downtick in acreage when it comes to cotton.
What do you think will be the biggest gain? I mean, if we talk about things staying steady, what do you think will be the biggest gain? Where are we going to pick up acres?
I think it'll be in corn and peanuts, and it's going to be for rotation. It's going to be a lot. There's no big uptick in either to make them say, oh, you know, corn prices have exploded, peanut prices have exploded, so we're going to go with that crop specifically. So it's really probably just rotation is going to dictate that on a per farm basis, really.
When we talk about soybeans, you know, traditionally a southern crop, you know, competes with cotton a lot of times in that rotation. More bean acres this year down south or no?
I don't think so. I mean, in my area, we do have some soybeans, but they're just not as widespread as corn. We just enjoy planting corn a bit more because dryland corn, you can hit a home run on, but it's very rare that you hit a home run on dryland beans around there.
Okay, all right. Well, optimistic down in the south for 2020?
Yeah, we had a decent year in 2019, actually. I was proud of most farmers. I mean, we had a little bit of heat stress early on. I mean, above 100 degrees for a period very early in the year. But then after that, I mean, that knocked a little bit of profits out, but we were still around break even. And you think, oh, break even, but I mean, coming off of a hurricane season in the southeast, into break even is a good place to be.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you, Ashley. Good perspective. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
For market insights and farm debt analysis, contact Ashley Arrington at 706-699-4543 or visit agraauthority.com. Join us at World Ag Expo, February 11th through the 13th in Tulare, California at the International Agri Center. Go to worldagexpo.com/buy-tickets and use promo code FARMJOURNAL to save $3 per ticket ordered online. Tickets are $15 at the gate.
A powerful winter storm is continuing to move east right now. As you can see from these pictures from northwestern Nebraska, driving has been a challenge. Portions of Salt Lake City, Utah reported getting a foot or more of snow on Monday, and that storm continues to work across, and it's going to make a mess.
Yeah, and it's looking a little more and more impressive every day. So that's something that we are going to be watching as we get into the next couple of days, and that storm marches to the east. The main low pressure to watch is going to be right here this morning over the eastern part of Texas, kind of that Arklatex area. The backside of that with the colder air, seeing some snow. You can see where that orange is. That's where we're expecting some icy conditions. And then the green, obviously rain. This whole system is going to be moving off to the east and northeast. Now, high pressure keeping things dry, at least at the beginning, in the north central United States and into the Great Lakes. But this whole system, again, as it pushes up to the northeast, is going to bring some messy weather in that direction. We're also looking at some more rain and upper elevation snow, so very wet conditions in the Pacific Northwest. So let's put this into motion. You can see that low making some northeastward progress. That snow, Texas, all the way up through Missouri and starting to get into Indiana. Rain on the south side of that, but that thin layer where we're going to be seeing some potential sleet and freezing rain as well. Now, as we get into the overnight hours, the low slowly moves further to the east. Snow starts to get a little bit more into the Great Lakes region, and then back through Missouri. Looks like you're going to be hit once again. You've already had several pretty decent snows this year. Ice continuing up into the northeast, including Pennsylvania there, and then rain all the way back through the central Gulf Coast states. Heading through our Thursday, that low starts to move up into kind of the southern and eastern Great Lakes. We've got snow up into Illinois, into Michigan, rain on the east side of that. But notice we don't want to ignore the Pacific Northwest. We're going to be seeing more rain and upper elevation snow there. Now, how much snow? Well, how much precipitation, I should say. Yeah, it's been wet over the last 24 hours with that low pressure and that front, especially in the southeast and, of course, the northwest as well. Add on the next 24 hours, yeah, we're looking at a fair amount of rain in the southeastern part of the country. Look at that. It's pretty much off the charts here for parts of South Carolina, northern Georgia, and parts of North Carolina as well. We're looking at some pretty wet conditions. All right, so what about the snowfall? Because that's going to be fairly significant for some areas as well. Texas, all the way up through Missouri, parts of Indiana as well. Most models are showing the heaviest right in this area, sort of north central, northern Texas into Oklahoma. Most models kind of agree on that. Now they differ in the, maybe a few inches on the amounts, but the track is fairly similar with most of the models. Ours has it a little bit further to the west than some of the other models. All right, let's take a look at those temperatures. We're going to be seeing a pretty big difference between that warmth in the southeast, and then everybody else is seeing some cooler temperatures, but no really cold air in place. In the overnight hours, we're going to see those temperatures getting down into the lower teens, perhaps even some single digits in the north central United States, that warmth remaining in the far southeastern United States. And as we head into tomorrow, 80s in Florida, but we only have 20s up in the north central U.S. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Craigmont, Idaho, morning snow, then some rain and snow today with a high of 39 degrees. Over to Cave Springs, Arkansas, freezing rain, sleet, and snow with a high of 36 degrees. And Carrollton, Georgia, showers and storms, high of 67.
The coronavirus and African swine fever are both viruses but not related. We'll discuss that next. And later, the bliss of a fancy cup of coffee for these North Dakota teens is helping improve milk sales at one high school. Details in the country. As the coronavirus grows, concern also remains about African swine fever, both viruses originating in China. Some question whether they are somehow linked, but experts that Farm Journal's Pork spoke with say that's not the case. They say the viruses are very distinct from one another and they are not closely related at all. The two viruses are completely different in terms of their basic structure, genome, and how they replicate.
When I interviewed Dr. Dan Rock at the University of Illinois, who's an expert in African swine fever, he mentioned that coronaviruses were unique because they are a little more promiscuous than other viruses when it comes to the host that they could infect. But meanwhile, we do know with African swine fever that it does not jump from species to species, and it just impacts pigs. And I think that it's important to realize the differences. And at the end of the day, African swine fever is still probably the most major concern for us in the swine industry for sure.
Researchers say there is no evidence from China that the coronavirus came from pigs or even that it can infect pigs. And the fight to keep African swine fever out of Germany is growing. Now the state of Brandenburg has installed 75 miles of electric fencing at a border. It hoped the fencing will keep wild boars infected with the virus from crossing the border it shares with Poland. ASF has been creeping closer to Germany, which is Europe's largest pork producer. Just one case confirmed in the country could prompt an import ban, which would hit producers hard. It has seen exports to China jump due to ASF outbreaks. And Reuters reporting German pork exports to China rose 43% in the first 7 months of 2019. It's reported the fence was built in December and is designed to be temporary. Up next, grabbing a cup of coffee is popular at one North Dakota high school, and it's helping stimulate milk consumption right along with it. That story next. A high school in Williston, North Dakota, successfully promoting drinking more milk among its student population. It's thanks to a $5,000 grant from the Midwest Dairy Council. Reporter Alyssa Tanner of KUMV shows us it's all thanks to one machine.
Do you want cream, honey? A little bit? Williston High School employees make at least 50 milk-filled coffee drinks a day using a state-of-the-art espresso machine.
Students consume less milk than they used to, but having the coffee machine has improved milk consumption overall.
The high school now purchases 500 to 600 gallons of milk a year just for coffee beverages, which have become popular among students.
I used to get it in the morning every day, and then now I have a first hour, so I get it during lunch every day. But I'm lactose intolerant, but I really like the coffee, so I deal with it.
Johnson says the only negative aspect is that they are promoting caffeine consumption. but they can only serve 12-ounce Java drinks with up to 60 more calories than what the milk provides.
If you look at a glass of milk compared to a glass of diet pop or any other drink, it's very high in nutrients, very high in minerals, and not very high in calories. It's good for kids to consume milk.
In Williston, I'm Alyssa Tanner reporting for your News Leader.
All right, that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.